Having joined the Daniels faculty and arrived in Toronto 2 months ago, tonight is my inaugural lecture. Welcome. However, I wanted to turn this lecture into a dialogue because there's so much for me to learn. So tonight, I'm very, very honored and grateful to have 4 Daniels alums who are making important contributions to the school, to the academic culture of the Daniels faculty, and to the civic life of Toronto. Please welcome Dr. Shashi Khan, Ms. Kaari Kitawi, Mr. Bruce Kuwabara, and Ms. Yan Wu. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome.
So now I'm going to turn towards my conversation partners for the night. So thank you all.
We are in this century, the century is going to be century of challenge of climate change and century of challenge of sustainability. And we as academic institutions have to transform our academic programs so we can meet those challenges posed by this one. What is your plan or idea of transforming those programs?
So we're getting harder and harder. Okay, climate change and sustainability. Dr. Shashi Khan is a environmental economist on sustainability and climate change. So I will share with you my thoughts on this. When I was approached by the university to consider joining this faculty, it was politely floated to me that one particular challenge for whomever the dean might be is the fact that last year we had the forestry faculty joined the Daniels faculty. And it, part of it is kind of how to integrate and bring the community together. And my initial response was I didn't see it as a challenge. I was really excited. I saw it immediately as an opportunity. I was thinking that finally here is an opportunity for me to do something with a group of colleagues that I have always tried to do in my own classes and in my own program, which is to recognize that the world is not divided between the built environment and the natural environment. And to recognize that for any of these major issues we're looking at, whether it's climate change or issues of sustainability, there is no singular solution. There is no singular method of research. There's no singular practice that can tackle this. So I'm quite excited by now with the condition we're in and with the mentality that we're in, and now with the faculty having scientists and designers and artists all working together, I have a small ambition, which is, could we consider to really set up a direction for the school where the courses and the curriculum is always shaped that in every single course is always considering the built and the natural together, that they're not entirely separated in different disciplines, that when we look at research, we look at it from design, and we look at it as a design research question, and we also look at it as a social science question. We also look at it as a natural science question, that we examine these common questions we have with these mixed methods of inquiry. And I am a firm believer that actually the design knowledge and architectural knowledge can have a lot to offer towards the sciences such as forestry, in terms of management, in terms of sustainability, in terms of value added for the future of Canadians' forestry industry. And by that token, all of the research methods and the wealth of knowledge of the land we're in and the forests and the the very nature that the world has to be recognized can really enrich the way that architects and planners to be able to re-examine the questions that we are trying to ask since the beginning, right? I think all of us in the various disciplines have always had a common goal, I believe, which is through what we research, through what we design, through what we practice, is we want to make the world a better place. We want to contribute to the everyday life. That's our common goal, and I do think that as long as we keep that in mind, if we can take a step to say, could we experiment with a different way of looking at the curriculum and courses, and perhaps that can get us to be able to get to some answers that so far have not been able to be asked or have not been able to be answered, which is the escalation of climate change. I do think that it's no longer I do think this issue of sustainability is no longer just a nice to have question. It's no longer just a social question. I actually think it is a question of survival. Right? It is a question of human survival. So we must radically change the way we teach, and we must radically change the way we live. Because whatever it is that we have been doing, and that I don't just mean us at school, but I mean everyone in this world, whatever it is we've been doing hasn't worked. So I think it's time for us to try a different way to look at this. And I do believe with all of the talents and resources and intelligence that is at the Daniels faculty and U of T, I do believe we can and we should contribute towards that step.
Good, thank you
Thanks.
so much.
U of T has many international students with different cultural backgrounds. How do you plan to engage them to participate in issues that are specific to the social, cultural, and the political context of Toronto or Canada at large? Because it's really a question of interlanguage and intercultural exchange. And how do you plan to facilitate that based on experience?
Thank you. I have to admit, again, when I was thinking about moving my family from Hong Kong to Toronto, my first Google was Toronto, the city, not the school, because I've always lived in fantastic cities, and I draw my energy for teaching and research from the city and the community that I live and work in. And I was really excited to read about Toronto being a multi-international and diverse community. And one thing that really convinced me that this is possibly a new home for me and for my family was this very evidence-open attitude that Canadians have towards immigration. And I find that in 2021, it is entirely rare and radical. I do not know a single other country that today has the majority of its citizens in support of immigration. And not only that, to have it to be such an even distribution across the country, right? It's not unlike the US, which is really the urban centers. So for me, that gave me the confidence that this is the city for me. That gave me the confidence that Toronto and U of T is going to go on to be a leader in the world, a leader in thought, a leader in culture. Because when everyone else are closing their borders, which is always a sign of defensiveness, Canada is keeping the borders open. And the evidence is also that at this kind of high percentage of international students we have, like yourself, at the Daniels, and in University of Toronto. And I actually think, from my own experience and so also from my academic research, that it is immigration and the flooding of particular cities and countries with new ideas and new thoughts and new energy, that is the engine for creativity. That is the engine for sustainability, both in terms of economics and culture. And for me, that's an asset, meaning the existence of such a diverse group of international students at university. And I feel from the short time I've been here, which is only 2 months, that is a community we haven't served as well as we should. And I say that also for the Daniels, but also in general at U of T in general. And this is something that I've been invited to be on a working group led by the Vice President International U of T. That is a question we're addressing. How can we better understand the challenges faced by international students? And how can we better recognize that U of T is no longer a university that's serving and producing talents for Canada. We're receiving talents from all over the world, and we're producing talents for all over the world. We're not only training people to work in Toronto and Canada, we're training people to be leaders in wherever they choose to go. So for me, this is something that I would like to contribute both at the university level, but also to start to create dialogues, initiatives that we can start to address that here in the faculty.
So my question is, Daniels is like the leading school in Canada, and I feel like there's a local as well as national and international mandate, not only to be a thought leader, but also to lead by example. So I want to find out, like, during your tenure here, how do you intend to make a change in terms of the recruitment and the enrollment of students from underrepresented communities, particularly the indigenous as well as Black? And I'm just would like to know how you're going to do that in terms of the faculty as well as students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So first, I'm going to ask lots of questions because I don't have the answers. Because while I have thought a lot about issues of inequity and the challenges we face around the world, I am very interested to speak with and meet as many people as I can on this issue that is very specific, unique for this community, right? The community of Toronto and the community of this particular country. And it is a topic that I have a cultural interest and also an intellectual interest. And for me is I want to be able to first understand what are the real challenges and what are the obstacles and what are small steps we can start doing today in order to reach where we want to go. And one of the initiatives that I've been in conversation with, and I'd like for you to know that this is, especially on the issue of recruiting Indigenous students and Black students, it is a priority for every single faculty, every single program and program directors today at the school. It is something that everyone wants to be able to contribute. And there are a number of ongoing, and I think you may be involved in some of them, there are a number of ongoing programs at the Daniels that have been going on for the past few years towards mentoring Indigenous youth in high school groups. I see Liat and Elder Wabugon right there, that they've been working with Indigenous youth, I think 4th year in the role now.
Okay.
And then we have, I'm not sure if Michael and Nini, very blind are here, but they are working in neighborhoods like Little Jamaica and trying to create outreach programs and mentorships in order to recruit students from socially and also culturally disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged groups. So that is something that is, I would say, that has been ongoing in the faculty. So I'm not, I'm coming in, for me, I want to know everything that we're doing. I want to be able to continue to help and support these programs. And I would like to be able to cultivate new programs to be able to really reach the goal. And for me, the goal is not necessarily just about hiring Black faculty or recruiting Indigenous students. For me, it is, I know based on my personal and academic experiences, is diverse ideas and intelligence makes any unit stronger.
That's true.
Whether it's a company, an office, a school, or a country. And this is from, I'm a student of cities. I have really tried to read and study and interview and create research about, what drives a city, what drives particular neighborhoods, and what are the ways in which particular communities and neighborhoods thrive when on the surface there's very little planning and little policy. And in other cases it doesn't work. And what I found very often is that it is the communities and settlements that are more open to different voices that is coming from bottom up, that are based on thousands of small initiatives. Those will always be more successful than the ones that's always top-down planned as a uniform policy and with a blanket, blind, I think sometimes, confidence that whatever you think it should be will be. That almost never happens. So I do think that it is important for us to create a more diverse and open community here in the school, and it is a two-way benefit that I hope it will benefit the communities and the individuals, and I know it will benefit the school. And so it's with that attitude that I will have towards recruitment of students and faculty. It's because I know with these new voices, our school will be stronger for it. As alumni or new faculty joining the school, I guess that's me. How do you think we can combat anti-racism at the faculty and within the discipline of design? What can students do? Since you chose the question, you go first, Kaari.
Okay. I have the answer. No, I'm joking. This is something which will, of course, take time and all that. But I think, to start off, I think we all can make room, and also we can all share space. So I think we can all be intentional in terms of genuinely connecting with communities from other, or people from other cultures. I think that's something that each of us can definitely do. And we can make room in our friendship circles for others to join us. We can make room in our study circles. We can also make room in our professional circles. So I think we all have to experience a bit of discomfort and a bit of moving a little bit to share the space with others. I think that's one. Another thing I think is also design school is expensive. So finances, scholarship, grants, I think that's a given. And something else I think is that we all realize that there's no lone ranger in solving this situation or this question, We all have to work together. We have to work, the professionals, the alumni, as well as the students. No person can solve this alone. So I think there's an opportunity for us to collaborate and move this forward. And of course, we have to keep the conversation alive, Let's keep it there on the table, and kind of assess as we go along and see how we are progressing on that. And I think another thing is what I think it was Friedrich Nietzsche who said, when you're fighting a monster, you have to be careful you don't become a monster in the process.
Yeah.
You look into the abyss, and the abyss looks back into you. So even as we fight something so ugly, we shouldn't become it or nasty to one another. Let's see how we can push this forward together. That's my little take.
Thank you. Thank you. So Yan, there is a question from the students about this north facade we're sitting right under. So with your training and practice as a public art curator, I thought maybe this question, you would be the best person to answer this question at the table. Giving the faculty's involvement in the support Black designers, and currently at the Daniel's mural project, what role does public art have in creating societal change? And the tougher question is the second part. How do we resolve the limitations? I assume it's the limitations of public art.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. It's a good question, and it's a loaded, complex question. And actually, you gave me yesterday, so I have been keep thinking since last night. It is actually a dilemma, and as a practitioner in the field as well, right? So I think we agreed yesterday is we're not giving out solutions to the answers, and as in the answer, so it's that. We're just sharing thoughts. So what I'm going to say is just what I've been thinking. How can I work around that and work with that? So I will say is, public art is a loaded term and also bearing a lot of expectations. But in my mind and how I'm starting to work around it is I don't think public art is a genre of art, first of all, because I don't think artists are making public art in their studios. They make artworks in their studios. So in my mind, and I think it will be productive to think public art is a term to describe a process of placing an artwork in a public space. So if we're really starting to unpack and think it as a process and think about all the disciplines and the knowledge holders and along the way and how we can unpack every single moment along this process, and then at all these moments we're starting to generate these mini publics. And I think that's how, so otherwise we always loaded expectation on public art as this thing, and this thing will make social change. Thing doesn't make social change. People make social change. So it's really about how. I would propose and to think public art as a process, and really then let's unpack the process. I think that's why I think Daniel's faculty is the best place to think about these questions. Because really public art and intersect with public design, urban design and urban planning, intersect with architecture and the landscape architecture and engineering, and then intersects with visual studies, artists, and then also intersects with curators, art writers, and architectural study, and historians. So Daniel has all, and I think that's where the place. And we can collaborate and really consider these questions together and through public art to form publics and then make social change happens.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that. And I hope the students who has been working with QRock and with our outreach team on the current mural project are listening, because I absolutely agree with Yan, and I believe that it is the process. That is where the value is. And all of the students and faculty members and staff who are involved in the process of mounting the murals, both for the Support Black Designers mural and the current one, it is that process that is the change itself. And it is in that process we learn and we confront and we try to arrive at a better place from before, right? And just one step at a time. So thank you for that. Shashi?
Yeah.
So as your question to me was regarding climate change and sustainability, here's a related question from the students. As climate change worsens, how can Daniel's student, staff, faculty, and alumni connect with nature, its preservation and growth in their practices and everyday lives?
Thank you. As you see, this question is if I had some real answer, and I will get a Nobel Prize at least, or something bigger than that. But I can provide many perspectives on that. First thing is, we should not wait till crisis becomes more bigger or something. We have to start thinking now, because crisis is already there. The people who recognize climate change crisis is already there. Millions of people are being affected globally, maybe not here yet, but here also, BC fires and US, all that. So we should start now. Second thing is, we have to think when it started, historically, when we become disconnected with the nature. It's not right from the inception of human life on this planet. It has been only during last 500, 550, or 600 years. Before that, we were connected to nature. And there are still people, like First Nations, Aboriginal, they are still connected to the nature. So what made us to disconnect with the nature? And what, in my mind, what made it disconnect to nature, this Cartesian view of the science. Earlier, we used to, or we intended to learn nature, to learn about nature, not to rule nature, not to overcome over the master over the nature. And that started with Cartesian view, and people here may know more than me. The physicists who created this Cartesian view and dominant view of science, they have themselves discarded with this quantum physics. Quantum physics, the basic, you can say the fundamental of quantum physics is everything is interdependent. Everything is interconnected. Even electron, the lowest particles, you can say, cannot, or particle, or whatever you call it, they cannot exist by itself. If there is no proton or neutron, there is no electron. So this is all, the world of science is based on connections and interrelationships. And we other sciences, we have not moved that far yet in terms of understanding those relationships. So that is the bigger issue, paradigm shift we need. Mm-hmm. The other thing I will say, when we are born, anybody is born, we are true reflection of nature. We are true reflection of the Creator. There is no disparity. We love nature. We love everything. But as we grow up, then many lenses are put there. First, parents will say what is good, what is bad. Then you go to the school, then you go to university. We put so many lenses on everybody, and then our view becomes so narrow. And in that narrow view, we forget about the nature. We forget about the creation. And that is now we are coming back with climate change or something. We have to start breaking those lenses. As you were saying earlier, everything is interdependent. It's not a separate lens of economics or separate lens of physics or something. And that is what I hope and I believe that this paradigm will move towards that. And then only we will realize the importance of the nature. So now, coming back, this is more philosophical thing you can say, coming back practically, how can we do it? So one is obviously the students here, particularly in Faculty of Architecture and Forestry, and they are more close to nature. They understand the importance of the nature. They have to start, even if it is not in their academic programs, but they have to start learning, throwing those different lenses and having a broader lens to this. And that's how you can connect with the nature. The fourth thing I will say also, with this scientific view, we have become dominated by our mind. We forget about our heart. And you can see so much that where you find the most peace. You find the most peace not in a big and crowded area. You go there, you enjoy there, but peace you find when you go by yourself, when you look into yourself inside. And that peace if you look inside, you can connect with the nature very easily. And you can see so many like examples. I heard a long time back, the Carter, somebody asked him, President Carter, there, when you are in trouble, what do you do? He said, I go to walk in my forest for 1 hour. I am away from everything. And people may say it is not scientific. For me, it is scientific, but our science has not advanced enough to understand that why it is happening. Now science has started talking about yoga and meditation and all that, but we have not gone to forest to learn what forest or nature can provide you in terms of the peace, and so we will reach there. So this is individual. Now as an institute in the Faculty of Architecture, definitely I think we here we talk about all time about a place. If we can make this faculty as a place where people come and say, oh, this is something different, where we see something to connect with the nature, which may be like architecture and forestry people coming together and the visual arts people coming together, you can create that type of the place where people can feel that connection. And the next thing is our programs. How can we incorporate something like not a program focused on this, but program which can incorporate that spirit in all the programs? Then obviously that will help. And then from the program we go to the community, like how can we expand from the Faculty of Architecture to a bigger community? That's what I will say.
Thank you, Shashi. If, again, for all the students that's listening, especially the students of design, here is a scientist, very, very accomplished natural scientist, and in sustainability and management of forests, who's saying that one of the things we can do about sustainability and climate is actually to create beautiful spaces for people to come together. And Bruce, here's a really tough one. It's okay, we'll answer it together. So here's a very tough question. And it is so loaded that I'm gonna ask the question. I'm going to ask the question on the behalf of the student. But I already, I would say that this is something that would take a lot more than Bruce and I to answer. So here it is. With Toronto's housing bubble, low wages, and unfair practices in architecture and other design disciplines, how can students create a career while advocating for themselves and for people who have been marginalized? So this is really, I think in some ways this is the elephant in the room. And Kaari, you addressed it a bit earlier. That the design disciplines, architecture, landscape architecture, and visual studies as well, it is an expensive field of study. And our graduates, once they go through very difficult years, 4, 5, 6, 7, when they do go out to the world, there's that question, right? How do I support myself and support my family? Because we can only help others when we're strong, right? So I feel this question, whichever student that asked it, and it is a question I think as a profession. I think for the past, especially, I want to say for 2 decades, our profession, Bruce, in architecture, we've been grappling with this issue of, student internships and how do we make it more economically more accessible, and how do we allow students to be able to have a certain stability. However, it seems for as much advances and reform we try to make in schools and in practice, we also are combating, in some ways, the worsening, say, economic issue of the city, right? From I'm just trying to learn that housing today in Toronto is more expensive than ever in history of the city, right? So for me is that I do recognize this is absolutely a serious issue that we should all look at and should tackle, and this is something that I would like to examine as a faculty, as to say what can we do in school, to better prepare our students, to perhaps teach them more entrepreneurial methods of practice, to give them channels by which that they can ask further questions on finance, further questions on practice, and further questions on possibilities of what they can do with their education. So I also would like to invite Bruce to help to answer this question, to see, what perhaps from the profession, from the architectural practices that will be future employees of our students, what do you think the practice could do towards this end?
It's interesting. In this pandemic, after George Floyd was murdered and Black Lives Matter, and in the context of truth and reconciliation, it really was a shock. And I think everyone who's here has gone through a lot of thinking, deep thinking about, their relationship with other people. For me, it's taken me pretty much a lifetime to try to become a Canadian. It's a long journey, believe me. And it's quite a remarkable construction. And it is a remarkable opportunity as well, because I agree that I think that Canada is one of the few open countries and one of the few working democracies, that we've got a lot to work with on all of these issues that aren't available in other places in the world. So, we have to really do a lot more, I think, to deal with the inequities, the differences between economic strata in society. It's one of the things that differentiates us from, say, the United States, which is always more extreme wealth and more extreme poverty. But the extent to which we allow this country to be divided like that is a problem for the future. So the question of affordability is on the table, and I think everyone realizes it has a lot to do with the entire real estate and development community. And I think what you're doing with this conversation is you're trying to reset the core values of the institution. That's what's happening here, I think, today. I would never have imagined that I'd be sitting here in 2021 at a table like this with you, to even have the opportunity to lay out what we really think has to be done.
So in closing, I would like to also thank all the students who have raised all the questions. They have been very helpful for me, and I hope they were helpful for everyone here, to be able to understand more about you, and more about you as students, and more about you as individuals, and more about you as aspiring future artists and designers and scientists and researchers. I also want to thank the student groups who also organized some of the questions, such as the Daniels Art Directive, Student Equity Alliance, Sport Black Designers, Daniel's Orientation Team, iLight Architecture, Landscape and Design Association. Thank you so much for your participation, and I hope that you can keep those questions coming, and we'll try to set up an online forum to collate these questions and for us to be able to answer these questions together throughout this year. So, and finally, I would like to give sincere thanks to Bruce, Shashi, Yan, and Kaari. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thanks for everyone for coming.